All right. Welcome to the Expect Success podcast, where we highlight real estate as an investment and the professionals who make it happen every day. Today, we're joined by Gary Eaker. Gary, please let everyone know about your background and your experience and how you got into it.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. So my name's Gary Eaker. I'm the COO of Alchemist Nation. Alchemist Nation is a real estate and coaching business. We run live meetups all over the country for real estate investors, and we are all about helping entrepreneurs to level up their businesses so that they can get involved in real estate. Too many people that we know they are working in their business instead of on their business, and they'd like to get involved in real estate, but they're just not able to. And so we like to help them out and then help them get involved in real estate. My background is I was in the Army for 24 years. Lived all over the world and ended up in Fairbanks, Alaska, where I retired from the Army. I had started out as a medic, and then I went all the way through nursing and then became senior hospital administrator when I retired. When I got out, I moved over into the civilian medical world. One thing I found out was that leadership in the Army is the same as leadership in the civilian world. It's all leadership principles, and I had been training leadership for 15 years before I got out of the Army. So I'm still a student of leadership, but I do a lot of teaching and coaching in leadership. During COVID, the organization I was working for had a shakeup and a reorganization. I lost my job. My father-in-law at the same time got really sick down here in Tampa, Florida, and we just felt that God was leading us to move. As my wife and I are the oldest in our family, so we moved to Florida, got in our cars and drug a 31-foot trailer across the Rocky Mountains. Took 2 weeks to get down here driving, but we got down here to Tampa. And as I got into Tampa, we went to look for jobs in the medical field, found out that people down here didn't want someone with 30 years of experience that they would have to pay a lot of money to. They wanted somebody with no experience that they could get away paying $30,000 a year to. We were like, that ain't me. So I actually got a coach and started working with them. And we were looking at self-employment opportunities, franchises, things like that. During that time, I realized I knew a lot about leadership, but I didn't know a lot about running a business. And so I started self-educating by reading everything I could get my hands on, watching podcasts, and just finding out what I could about running a business. In the course of that, we read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Of course, that's a life-changing book for a lot of people. It did us. We figured out we've been looking at money wrong our whole lives. Looked at the cash flow quadrant and knew that I wanted to be on the right-hand side of that cash flow quadrant where there's investors and business owners. And what we were looking at with a franchise, we were basically looking at buying ourselves a job. And I didn't want to go down that route. So we decided that we were going to do real estate investing. In that book, Robert Kiyosaki talks about investing in tax liens. And so we were riding around one day in Tampa and heard an advertisement on the radio. If you want to learn about investing in tax liens, come to this seminar. I went to the free seminar. Of course, that was the top of the funnel for one of these real estate groups where you go for free, then go to a 3-day seminar for $1,000. And at the end of that, it's like, but if you really want to know the good stuff, you need to pay us the 40 grand, and then you can come and be a part of all this other stuff. So we paid the 40 grand. I mean, after all, we were looking at franchises for 100 grand. So 40 grand didn't seem all that expensive. Paid the 40 grand, did all of our education, and that's how we sort of got our start as real estate investors. Started in tax liens, and then of course they didn't just teach tax liens; they taught all the other different ways of acquisition and exit strategies and all that kind of stuff. So we got a really good education in it, and then got started in it. Right now, I personally own one rental property, and then we also rent a RV, which is like a mobile Airbnb is the way we treat it. That's our hospitality business. So we have that hospitality business, and then we have a property that we use for midterm rentals, mostly renting to traveling nurses, sometimes old people that are making, or older folks that are making a transition from one state and moving into Florida. There's a lot of that. So they come and they rent it for 3 months at a time, and then as they're waiting for their house or something like that. So we do that. We operate that. But then I've also with Alchemist Nation, I learned to build networks and use my network to add value to other people. So as my network got larger, more people were bringing me deals. Other people were asking me if I knew about deals or where they could employ their money. And so, when someone would bring me a deal, I would and ask me if I knew where they could get money for it. I would say, "Show me the deal." I would present it to someone who had the money, and those were working out. I wouldn't. It was nothing for me to just give their phone numbers off to each other, and that was fine. But then one time, one of the guys that had the money, he called me back and he's like, "I want to get in this deal, but I don't want to have anything to do with the minutia of it. I want you to handle that." And so I'm
Okay.
like, "Well, that's brokering money. Let me check and see if that's legal." So I called my lawyer. He said, "Call Tallahassee." So I called Tallahassee. They're like, "Absolutely. As long as it's not, as long as nobody's living in the house that you're, if it's not owner occupied, it's just investment properties or commercial properties. That's all a contract between you and whoever has the money. So, knock yourself out." So at that point, I became a private money broker and I started putting other people's money into deals. And so now I've got deals that I'm involved in all the way up in Calumet City, Illinois. I've got a ground up build going on in St. Petersburg with condos. I've got another condo build that I'm raising money for in this is not just brokering money. Now people have started coming to me and asking me to help them raise money for certain things. And so this is one I'm raising money for a ground up build near Armature Works in Tampa. And that's that we're about halfway through the cap raise for that. And so just a lot of things since we started. It didn't go the way I thought it would. I thought it was going to be, we're going to fix and flip and then we're going to start buying and holding. But in building my network and just doing as much as I could to help other people, when you do that and you give and you give and you give, the law of receptivity says you have to be ready for when it comes back. We reap what we sow. So when you sow, you have to be ready to reap. And that reaping may not be exactly what you're looking for, but you have to be ready and open for it as it comes. And so the private money brokering and raising money for other people is what I'm mostly in now. And that's sort of what's come to me. And we accept that, and we're still looking. And I'm actually in negotiations right now for a multifamily deal in Tennessee, and we're looking in different areas. I'm involved personally in some multifamily deals, other places where I've actually lent money into those deals. So
Okay,
that's
awesome. You
basics of
actually
it.
hit a lot of questions that we were going to go into, which is totally fine. And I would definitely want to thank you for your service. And I do have heard a little bit about your background, but this was a little more in depth, which was awesome to hear. Did want to ask you, what made you decide to focus on multifamily apartments and tax liens as an investment? Like, what was more attractive to you about that than going like the single family route?
Sure, yeah. Well, we started with tax liens, and I've still got some tax liens that we're following and that we invested in. Because tax liens were originally, I heard about that from Robert Kiyosaki
Right.
and heard about that from the seminar, so we went that way. Tax liens is a good method of acquisition, but the problem is there's a lot of hedge funds and a lot of institutional investors that also know about tax liens, and they hire whole rooms full of people to buy tax. And what they do is they buy the tax liens in a lot, so they'll get like a lot of 150 tax liens all at once. And the problem is that a lot of tax liens are no good. They're worth nothing because they put tax liens on everything. It's done by a computer. Anything that's parceled off, like say, if there's a partial, if the traffic island is parceled off and somebody didn't pay a tax on it, it gets a tax lien put on it. So if you buy a bunch of tax liens and you don't know what you're buying, you can lose a lot of money. So it doesn't make sense for individual investors to buy tax liens like that unless you've got enough money to buy a huge lot of tax liens, which would be like, you say you've got $300,000 and you buy a lot of tax liens for $300,000 and then you sift through them to find the ones that are actually worth something. So that can be good. But individually, as an individual investor, small time guy, you have to go in, you have to do a lot of work up front to make sure that the tax liens that you're buying are worth it. So it used to be a lot easier than the hedge funds got involved. And so now by the time it gets down to individuals being able to purchase them, which is usually after the auctions, it's been picked through several times. So it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. So we started with tax liens. We were working on tax liens. It's just a lot of work for not a lot of recompense. And so we sort of moved from that towards multifamily just because of what we learned about multifamily. in that multifamily tends to be um, you've got more doors in a single property than you've got with single family. And so single family, if you got an air conditioner goes down, that can be your whole that can be your whole cash flow for a year if you've got to replace an air conditioner, things like that. Whereas with multifamily, you tend to have higher levels of income, higher levels of cash flow. Also, if you've got a multifamily of 10 units and you have one or two vacancies, you still got cash flow there. So you're still able to make it. You've got a single family home and you've got a vacancy, there's no cash flow. Now you're automatically losing money. So there's just a lot of advantages to multifamily. Another thing with multifamily is a lot more opportunities for partnerships, a lot more opportunities for raising money in multifamily. And now, right now, multifamily, there's some tough places in multifamily. Multifamily is really in a slump right now. A lot of, if you go to a multifamily real estate course, they won't tell you this. But multifamily is really in a slump, and it's probably going to be in a slump through 2025. Now, there are areas of the country where it's not in a slump, where they're in the period of a market where things are picking up. And so those are areas that we're looking for right now. But it's hard to do multifamily in the area where you're at because there's such a variance in the market. And so you may not be in a spot where you're at that multifamily is a good investment. And so you may need to be looking in other places. And a lot of newer investors, they want to invest where they're at. So that's one of the cons of multifamily.
Well, let me ask you, let me jump in really quickly. This wasn't on the list, but speaking of that, us being in Tampa and that being one of the hot spots in the country during the boom, what is your outlook on the multifamily market in Tampa right now?
We are almost at the bottom right now. And this isn't coming from me. I just attended the Central Florida Multifamily Investors a big huge conference that they had. The thing that was nice about that is it wasn't just investors. These are people that are working actively in the multifamily market. So it's a lot of architects, a lot of developers, a lot of people that are active in the market for multifamily. And in Central Florida right now, Central Florida has been overbuilt. And the overbuilding that they've been doing since 2021, that's all coming to a head. It's most of it's been hitting the market in 2023, 2024, and 2024 is when that's been coming, right? And so as that stuff comes out into the market, it's really flattened off the curve. It was back 2021, the rents were going up astronomically. Well, now the rents have flattened off, and actually rents have started to go down in some places just because the glut of multifamily that's come onto the market. And so we expect to see that stay at a steady decline as far as rents go, or stay even through the end of 2025 before it starts picking up. Because here's the thing, right now the builders have stopped. New builds have stopped. The developers have gone down. The request for permits has gone down, at least in the Tampa Bay area. So that new development stuff has pretty much slowed down. But you're going to see a continuation of these developments over the past that have been put up since 2021. They're starting to come onto the market. You'll see those continue to come onto the market through the end of 2024, maybe into the first parts of 2025. And then you're going to see a sort of a pause. And as we pause that, and as more people come into the area, then you can start to see that picking up again in the end of 2025. Right now, it's very difficult to find deals that cash flow in this area. So if appreciation is your game, then buying for appreciation and being able to hold through the low period, with negative cash flow for a while, you may be good. Because if you buy while it's low, hold through the negative cash flow period, and then wait for that appreciation, which should happen in 2025. But there's so many variables because you never know what the economy is going to do. It depends on who gets into office in November. Do we have World War III or not? There's so many variables that can make that risky. And so your levels of risk go on if you're trying to hold through a low cash flow period, waiting for it to go up. Right now, I think it's going to stay steady. I don't think that there's going to be a crash in Tampa Bay. I think the crash has happened. A lot of commercial multifamily has been devalued by almost 20%. A lot of that has to do with the interest rates, people coming up into, the people that got in with these 3 and 5 year loans back in 2019 through 2021, those things are coming up. And they got into those loans at 3%. And now they're going to be coming up, and they're not going to get 3% again. They're getting offers of 6 to 10%. That's, you're talking triple of the interest rate. And so you think about tripling the cost of your capital on these things, especially if they're highly leveraged. We're going to see a lot of syndications fail, and that's just the way it is right now. And I don't think it's been people doing fraud or anything like that. I think a lot of it has been people that got into the market, didn't really know what they were doing. They were sort of new, got friends and families money to come into it and get into the market. And everything that, while the market was really on fire, went very well for them. But as the market turns, they really don't know what to do. And so as that happens, I think we're going to see syndications start failing. We've already started seeing it in some place. Remember, there was a $20 million syndication out in Houston that failed not too long ago. It's different things like that. They had a really good podcast on Bigger Pockets just recently about syndications, and our syndication is going to fail. And they expressed something similar in sort of what I've been seeing.
I didn't see that whole episode, but I did see some of it. And you mentioned quite a few things too, like about the markets failing. And Tampa wasn't expressly named, but I know Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami, they were named, and also Houston and Dallas as well. So, and none of that factors in even the rising costs of insurance, how they've doubled their insurance rates. So to stay on track to keep up with your time, what has been one of the most significant successes as far as your real estate investment, and what did it teach you along the way? And then I definitely want to move on to your networking so we can touch that as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think probably the most significant is just my shift into handling other people's money for them and helping broker money into deals. I think what I've learned is that there's a lot of money out there, and there's a lot of people that are looking to employ their money if you get them the right deal. But the deal has to make sense. And so part of that becomes my ability to underwrite a deal, understand what's in it. And I actually, 9 times out of 10, I'm meeting with the people that are borrowing the money, that need the money. I have some type of meeting because I do a lot off of how do I feel about them? Does this person, what's their level of experience, and so that I can feel comfortable talking to my investors and saying, this is a good deal. I'm not going to bring someone into a position where I think it's a bad deal or where I'm even suspect of it. And many of the times, if someone's asking me to raise money for them, I'm like, I will raise money for you if we are in a partnership. And so it becomes, it has to be someone that I feel comfortable going into a partnership with. So that's one of the things I've learned most is dealing with people and how people have needs and being able to fulfill those needs, but being very, very careful with other people's money, probably more careful than I would be with my own.
That's an awesome and ethical perspective. Definitely. I love that. How do you do these networking events? How do these networking events, benefit both you and your attendees? And it's just a general question because I've obviously attended some and I've got huge value out of the meeting itself and also our one-on-one. So I just want to let other people hear about it.
Yeah, well, that's my, honestly, the networking events, this is something that Alchemist Nation taught me. This is what we teach other people with Alchemist Nation. It's about getting people together that you can add value to. And I don't know if you've ever read The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. It's a philosophy that we live by. And the idea is not to be a go-getter where we're always looking to see what's in it for us, but we're always looking to see how much we can give. How much can I give? How much value can I provide to other people? And then from that, we sow that value out and then be expected to come back. And so we're not doing it on a basis of, I will give you this as long as I make sure I get something, but it's, I will give you, and I know that something's going to come back from it. So that's sort of the philosophy that we live by in Alchemist Nation. We try to be authentic and provide as much value as we can. I love running the groups. One of the things I love about the groups is just being able to talk with people, network with people, and find out more about them and find out what their needs are. Because a lot of times that group, I can use that to help people on their journey. One of the things I used to do in the group on a regular basis is we would play games in the group, like a networking game. Like I had one that was called Networking Bingo, and I would have a sheet out here, and I would have a whole bunch of different things that have to do with real estate investing. But some of those things had nothing to do with real estate investment, like who has a pilot's license or who has and so the object was you go through, you get your thing and you go through and ask people, and you would initial off. And so whoever got the most, that they found someone that has a pilot's license, or they found someone that grew up outside of the United States. But then it also had things like, how many people own more than 5 properties? You own, find someone that uses a self-directed IRA. Find someone that has used credit repair in the past. And so from that, I would be able to tell, hey, I would even question them. I was like, so how many of you ever heard of a self-directed IRA? Find out that there's 2 people out of a room of 20 that even heard of a self-directed IRA. So what does that mean I need to do? That means they need education about self-directed IRA. So I could get a self-directed IRA guy to come in, teach a class on self-directed IRAs. So it allowed me to provide value by learning the people, learning more about them, and learning what their needs were, and learning where their deficits in knowledge might be, so that I can come and help provide some of that value back to them.
Now, that's awesome, because not only that, you were teaching people basic communication skills and how to build relationships, because asking those questions, getting to know people, you build those relationships by showing an interest in them.
And I will tell you this, when I first started, I knew that I needed to network, but nobody taught me how to network. And so for a year, I was going to Tampa Bay, TBRIA, which is the Tampa Bay Real Estate Investors Association. I faithfully attended their regular meetups, and then I also attended their local meetup that was close to me in Brandon. And I thought I was networking by walking into that group and then sitting there and waiting for somebody to walk up to me, and I would hand them my business card. There you go. So I'm networking, right? Of course, that type of networking produces nothing. Right? It's useless. But most people in these groups think that that's what it's all about. And what I try to get through to people, and I try to teach the proper networking to folks, because that's where you make your initial contact. The real networking comes after, when you get on a Zoom call with them, or when you go to take them to lunch, or you go and you go to a coffee with them, and then you find out what their needs are and how you can help meet their needs. You go to a networking group just to make an initial contact so that you can really do the networking. I didn't know that. And so I try to bring that out in my groups. I try to make sure that they understand why you're networking. So many people will go to a networking group with one person. They'll bring a friend with them to a networking group. They go to a table, they sit at that table with that friend, and then they never talk to anyone else the whole rest of the time. I'm like, that ain't networking, folks. So I would do things to try to make them get up and get out to other people and meet other people, because honestly, that's hard for people sometimes. It's scary to go and talk to somebody that you don't know. It's scary to stand up and present yourself. But it's necessary if you want to be successful in business. It's necessary if you want to be successful in investing, and so I just think it's so necessary, and so many networking groups don't focus on that. They just have the group and get the people in and teach them a class and let them go home, but they miss the whole purpose of the group, which is networking and helping people to understand what that's all about.
That's so funny, because that's literally what I did my first networking meeting. Took a friend at a table, and he did most of the talking, and I would interject every now and then. We're almost out of time, Gary, but I did want to, before we let people know how to get a hold of you, I think you kind of answered this already. What advice would you give to someone to start their real estate investing journey? You've already talked about the importance of networking, relationships, and
build your network. Build your network. That is definitely, it doesn't matter what you're doing, any entrepreneurship. And I would even say it doesn't matter. You're working a W-2 job, build your network. The stronger your network, and not just build it so that you've got them in your phone, but understand their needs and their wants. And then as you come across people that can fill those needs and wants, as you build your network, you're like, hey, you provide this service. I got this guy over here that does this. Let me get you together. And then use your network to start adding value to other people. And if you do that, believe me, it's going to continue to come back to you in ways that you can't imagine. And that's definitely my first and number one advice is build your network and use it to add value to others.
And one of my takeaways from our conversation is be open and to pivoting. Be open to the
Yeah.
opportunity to pivot as well. Gary, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you and reach out to you if they want to learn more about the networking or connect with you personally?
Yeah, probably the easiest, go to my website, just GaryEaker.com, GaryEaker.com. That's just a funnel. It's got a button that says connect with me. It's got another button that says book a call. If you want to get a hold of me, just go there, book a call. It'll put you on my calendar and we can talk. Just try to let me know what it's going to be about first and be great. So, but you
And
can
how
get
can
all
they
my connection information there.
attend one of the Alchemist meetups?
So our Alchemist meetups for Tampa. Now, the best thing is look on Eventbrite. Look for Alchemist Nation on Eventbrite because we have meetups all over in Central Florida. We've got meetups in Atlanta, Charlotte, all the way up into the Northeast. We've even got Boise, Idaho, Houston, so several places in Texas. So if you're not local to Tampa, but then that's what I suggest. But if you're in Tampa, we meet the second Tuesday of every month at Dave & Buster's. That's not the bar, that's the arcade. Dave & Buster's out near Top Golf, but sort of between Tampa and Brandon. And that's every second Tuesday at 6 p.m. And then if you're an investor, we have an investors meetup every Thursday at 8:30 a.m. at Just Love Coffee in Brandon. And that's for people who have deals or have money that they want to get into deals. We're putting active investors together with money and watching deals happen right there. So that's our investors meetup, or the Tampa Business and Real Estate Professionals meetup. That's the second Tuesday of every month.
Awesome, Gary. I appreciate your time. I definitely want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank everyone for watching, and just want everyone to remember we expect success and believe because we believe and we consistently put in effort. Gary, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks a lot, Eric. Appreciate you.